Hi, everybody. Today we're going to add a bit of character to our portraits. Let's start with the basics. Let's say you feel like you can't draw. Perhaps when you try to draw a face, the best you can manage looks something like this. And you might think, oh no, this isn't good. This isn't worth it. But let me tell you something. This very simple shape is already good enough because what it lacks isn't accuracy. What it lacks is a story to tell. For instance, I can take the same face, place it in a different setting, or give it a different story, and suddenly that same plain face has something completely new to say just because it has context, it has a sense of story. So, can you see it now? It is the same simple shape. It is the same basic face, but just by adding a few details or changing the ambience, we give it life. You don't need to add much. In fact, I think it works best when you add just enough. That's what transforms it into something with a story to tell. Sometimes when a composition feels like it's missing something, it's not always about the level of detail or technical skill. You might see a hyper realistic piece that's perfectly executed and yet still feels incomplete. Often, what is missing is something small, subtle touch, a spark of life or meaning that makes the work memorable. Also, sometimes the work is so much about the artist that it looks like there is no effort to communicate to the viewer. So the viewer will look at it and see, okay, that's pretty, and so what? Okay, so that's what we are going to do today, okay? And we'll see how small changes can transform something simple into something expressive, something that communicates, okay? So let's get started. The first one is very simple. We're just going to paint a man with birds. I'll start with a quick sketch. It's not much different from what we've done in our basic drawing exercises. And the only difference this time is that we are given a darker skin because I think that the contrast works nicer with the yellow background. This is a simple flat painting. The main thing I'm doing here is letting the brush follow the natural form of the face. So it adds an extra layer of texture and movement also. So when someone looks at it closely, they will notice those tiny details, those tiny little movements of the nose, the eyebrows, and so on, even though it looks quite flat from a distance. And even if we are keeping it as simple as it is, using basically only two colors, it can already have something interesting to say. Here, I'm adding just a few extra layers of the same color just to give the piece a little more texture. Then I add the other birds to make the story a little bit richer. And before you know it, the composition is complete. So let's try another one. I always encourage you not necessarily to be a minimalist, but to focus on creating simple things because simplicity is much easier to manage. And once you master simple forms and compositions, you can gradually start adding more complexity and detail if that's what you're looking for. One common mistake people make when they are starting out is trying to jump straight into creating something huge, something big, a Rococo or Renaissance style composition. They look at the great masters and think, I want to do that. And that's okay. If that's what you want, you should go for it. But just know that those masterpieces didn't happen overnight. What you see is the result of years, sometimes decades of study and refinement. Trying to start at that level is the quickest path to frustration because you simply cannot achieve that instantly. So allow yourself natural time to grow. Everyone learns at their own pace, and that's perfectly fine. Your progress depends on many, many factors. Not only your natural talent, your natural comprehension of the world around you, or your understanding of the materials and everything regarding to art making, but also it depends on your environment, on your personal responsibilities, your levels of energy. Maybe you're juggling housework, kids, demanding job, or personal challenges. All these things influence how much time and energy you can dedicate to learn. So don't be too hard on yourself, okay? It's not always about skill, but about how much of yourself you can realistically invest in the process. Okay, so I kind of regret having tilted the head of this one because I think it might have worked better if I'd kept it straight. The first one could have had that tilted head, but this one, I think it would be better if it was straight, but that's all right. Still works. Something that I used to mention in our early videos is the importance of using a limited color palette, especially if you're starting out. The best thing is to stick to, let's say, four, no more than six colors and use only those in all your paintings. Of course, you can mix and match, but try to stick to those only, okay? Because by doing this, not only you can create a consistent body of work, but also you train your eye. Sometimes when something feels a little bit off in a piece, it's not the drawing that's wrong, it's the color. And when you keep your palette consistent, it's easier to spot what's missing and what's out of place because you've already familiar with how your colors work together. A couple of other things that I used to say in our very early exercises. Two things. First, go big. Work on larger surface whenever you can. Okay? Because of course it's entirely up to you. You do you. You do what makes you feel comfortable. Okay? But I will always encourage anyone to go big. Not only does it give you more space to explore your composition, but it also teaches you restraint, because you might think that a larger canvas means you need to fill it with more things, but no, it's your opportunity to appreciate the value of negative space. That's my first bit of advice. Always go big when you can. And the second is work in series. Don't limit yourself to do just one piece. Sometimes the first attempt won't come out right, and that's perfectly fine. You might just need some time to warm up. And even if you're painting the same subject, do it two, three, or four times. It's very common for the first one not to work out. And just don't get frustrated and think, oh no, it didn't work. It's not that you failed, it's just that you weren't ready yet. You need to give yourself a little time to warm up, okay? And one more thing, before you start painting, make sure you're really there. Okay, no distractions. Make sure you have all your needed material with you: paint, brushes, water, and so on. Turn off your phone. I'm sure anyone can survive an hour or even more without checking notifications. This should be your moment to escape, to lose yourself, and to emerge in the process. That kind of immersion helps you see things with more clarity. We've got time for just one more, so let's pick one that is simpler and see what we can do. And before you know it, it's finished. Okay, so each of these pieces took me around 15 to 20 minutes. The only one that took a little bit longer was the man with the flowers because of the flower details and everything, and also because I made a little mistake in the beginning and had to fix it. But they are all very quick and easy to make. However, don't you feel as if you have to work as fast as I do? If it takes you an hour per piece, give yourself that hour, okay? When I say I do these in 15 minutes, remember, I've been doing this for quite some time and I already understand the basics of composition and I already know my colors. I already know myself as an artist, so I like to believe. And most of my work comes from imagination, so I am not tied to reference images or anything. I'm just trying to make the compositions match what's already in my head. Also, these pieces aren't commissions or gallery works. They're just exercises, ways to show you what you can do with little or no formal art training. If these were pieces I planned to sell or to exhibit, I'd absolutely spend more time on each, probably a couple of hours refining the lines and adding details. But for the sake of the exercises, I do them very quickly, okay? So these are the results of what we've done today. I hope you've learned something new today and that you understand that what makes a piece memorable isn't its level of complexity, but how it connects and how it speaks to the viewer. As always, Keep on practicing, and thank you for joining us.